Hey friends, welcome back to the Gubba Homestead. I'm Gubba and today we are going to be talking about pressure canning and what the best pressure canner is going to be for you. So behind me I have my All-American model number 1921. They have recently updated. The new model number is 1930, but when I got this it was the 1921. It's the same thing if you look it up. And I also have the Presto digital pressure canner. So between these two, which one is right for you? So we're gonna run through the pros and cons of each, and then what I would suggest, maybe a little bit of a surprise, but we will get to that at the end of the video. So right here is my All-American. It is a super amazing pressure canner that you will pretty much have for the rest of your life. Something that is super nice about it is you don't have a gasket in here that has to be replaced. All you have to do is put oil every time you can around this lip because it is a metal to metal contact right here. This pressure canner is definitely built to last. It is very heavy duty. It is a top quality pressure canner. One of the amazing pros about this pressure canner is you can with a camping stove. So if you just have a camping stove, a gas camping stove, you can with this outside. So that comes in handy if it's hot inside. My house doesn't have air conditioning, so I can still can during the summers outside with this. Another thing that is great about this is it is not so big, but it isn't too small either. So I can 19 pints in here or 7 quarts. And I like that size. It's perfect for me and what I am doing. They have different sizes of pressure canners in the All-American line. One thing about this is it is pretty heavy and lunky to move around, so keep that in mind. And when you are canning, you are very involved with this. So you have your jars in here, you're canning your food. For example, I just canned some beef stew. I did some jars in my All-American and some jars in my Presto canner, and that's why we're doing this review today. It is fresh on my mind of what one may be better for different uses, and I wanted to run that through with you. But you got your jars in your canner, your All-American, you are going to be very involved with this because once you put on the lid, you bring it to heat and then steam starts coming out the top. You got to then time it for 10 minutes and then you put on your weight. So this is your weight, and it is going to be according to your altitude. There is 5, 10, and 15 on here, so just depending where you live, you'll have to figure that out according to, again, where you live. So after that 10 minutes, after the canners has steamed, you put on the weight and then you wait until this jiggles. It'll go da-da-da-da-da. And you want it to jiggle between 1 and 4 times per minute. You don't want it to constantly jiggle or this could run dry. You do not want to can your canner dry. So what I mean is all the water runs out because this is constantly jiggling and letting steam escape, and then your jars don't have any water in there. That could potentially ruin your canner. So you are very involved. You need to be keeping an eye on how many times this jiggles. And if, say, you have to adjust your heat and it's going to be by oven, so stay with me here. Your oven is going to be different than mine, and even from my previous oven, I have to adjust on my oven's heat. So what that means is you get it going steaming and then you have to turn it down. So then this wiggles between 1 and 4 times a minute. It can't constantly be wiggling and you want it to wiggle at least once or else you have to restart the process all over again, the timing process. So you can see how you are very involved with this canner throughout the whole process. And especially if you're just starting to can and figure out pressure canning, you have to adjust your oven. You will get it down, you'll figure out what the perfect temperature is, but it's gonna take a few tries and you still have to babysit it. Another thing with this kind of pressure canner, so far it is a pro that you can can it outside on a camping stove, but it's kind of a con. You are super involved, you're kind of glued to the canner. Another thing, this weight, you don't wanna lose this weight. It's actually a good idea to get like a string and tie it to right here. I keep it in the original envelope it came from, but as I was about to make this video, video, I was like, where's my weight? I couldn't find it because I had set it down, didn't put it back in here, and it ended up being among my jars of beef stew. So you have to keep track of this little part. Another thing to consider with getting a canner like this, which is an investment, like I said, it's heavy. Because of that, if you have a glass electric stovetop, you may not be able to operate a pressure canner like this. You are going to have to look at the manual of your oven to see if a pressure canner is okay, or you can call the manufacturer to see if they approve canners like this. I really wouldn't suggest it, and that is for a few reasons. It can be done if your manufacturer approves it, but I wouldn't suggest it because of how heavy it is. It could crack your cooktop, and electric heat on the top of your oven is more difficult to hone into than it is for me to adjust a flame on my gas oven cooktop. So that is then going to make it more difficult when you're trying to time the wiggles of the weight, and you then have to restart because it wasn't wiggling or it's constantly wiggling. It could just be a hassle. But you could just get an outdoor camp stove that you plug in a little gas container into and use one of these just fine as long as you have the space. It's openly ventilated. You could even do it in your garage with the door open. So there are options if you want a canner like this. I just wouldn't suggest it if it was an electric cooktop. I get a lot of questions about that, but again, just call your manufacturer and see. So pros is that this is built to last for forever. I don't ever have to replace a gasket, which is a plastic inner ring, which I will show you on the Presto digital canner here in a moment. And it is extremely high quality. The All-Americans are like the canner for life. I will pass this on to my children. So overall, yes, it is amazing. You're really involved. You gotta keep an eye on it. You gotta tune in with your oven. Things may have to restart. So it's very manual. It's not automated. Whereas we come to our digital pressure canner, this Presto pressure canner, which I have very much come to love. So I'm all about self-sufficiency, being able to be off grid. This would allow me to do that. I can go outside, but this needs to be plugged in. So you have a cord that you plug in, and keep in mind this will take a lot of power. I actually threw off the electric in my kitchen. It shut off the breaker because I had this going. I had my Instant Pot going, and I had a roaster going. That was too much and it flipped the breaker, so keep that in mind if you are doing a lot of kitchen and canning projects at once. This takes a lot of power along with anything that produces heat, so like the roaster, a crock pot, an Instant Pot. But what I love about this is, unlike this canner where you're very involved, it's very manual, this is automatic. You plug and you chug. And I love that because, you know, especially if you're busy, you have a million things going on, this does it all for you. To get this ready, you pour in the water, you put in your jars, and it heats up your jars for you. So when you are water bath canning, you will want to heat and sterilize your jars. Pressure canning, you can do that, but you don't have to because it already gets so hot in here, it'll sterilize everything. And then while you are preparing your recipe, it's keeping your jars warm. So that is another thing with this. You kind of have to juggle. If you need your jars warm as you're canning, you gotta kind of have the oven on to make sure the water's warm. You gotta make sure the jars are staying warm. Very manual, all right? A lot of labor, planning ahead. All right, you put the jars in, it keeps them warm. You get your recipe going, get the jars out, you fill them up, you put them back in, and it stays warm. All you do is you put in the time that your canning recipe calls for, you click, 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 and it goes through the process for you. Instead of having a weight, it has what this is called a regulator. And this little screen right here will step you through the different steps. It says the jars are warming, it's warming up, put your regulator on. It tells you what to do. Where again, this one you just gotta learn, know what to do some practice with it. This really babies you. And I love it. I love it. It is so convenient. I didn't even mention the best part about this canner yet. This canner is both a water bath canner and a pressure canner. This one is designed for just pressure canning. That's the only thing I use it for. I do see people who cook with it, they water bath can with it. I don't. I just keep it as a pressure canner. I don't want to mess it up. That's just its job. That's what I keep it for. This does both. This water bath cans, this pressure cans. So when it comes to convenience and all-in-one, you have an electric stovetop, a glass stovetop, this is what you want. I would say, unless you want to deal with a camp stove, have something, you know, self-sufficient off-grid, absolutely go for this. You could even do a mix like I do. The one con of this that I am going to mention, one of its downfalls, is it does not have as much of a capacity as my All-American. This can hold 5 quart jars, regular mouth, and 8 pint jars, regular mouth, or 4 quart jars, wide mouth, and 7 pint jars, wide mouth. So it can't hold that much, whereas my All-American can hold 19 pint jars and 7 quart jars. So you can can up a lot more in this canner as compared to this one. So keep that in mind. If I had a lot to can, would not be using wide mouth jars in this. Unless I planned accordingly and I only had a little batch, then maybe I could use wide mouth if that's all I had. But wide mouth jars are going to be a waste of space in your Presto digital pressure canner. So space is a limiting factor on this. But if you're not doing huge batches of canning, if you're not, you know, cleaning out your freezer, and you're just doing things like jams and jellies and little things here and there, or you don't mind having this run a lot, this is a great option. And this may be your only option if you have the glass or the electric stovetop. And it's not a bad option. Like I said, I really love this thing. It is so convenient. They both come with amazing manuals. So whatever one you get, keep the manual and refer to it, read it, and get to know your canner. They're gonna have great recipes in here. They'll be able to walk you through any troubleshooting for whatever one you decide, but keep these on hand. They will definitely come in handy for whatever one you choose. So overall, I think the award of best pressure canner goes to, they both get a crown. They both get stars in different categories because you can't beat the convenience of this. A 2-in-1 canner, and it does everything for you on the screen. It walks you through it. You don't have to worry about a weight. It tells you when to put the weight on. It does everything. Another thing that I would like to mention with the Presto digital pressure canner that I have noticed, I've done a lot of canning in both of these canners. I have had more failed seals in my Presto digital pressure canner than I have in my All-American. So I have done the same recipes, canned up the same things, but I have had overflow from here and put it into here. So it has been the same batch, same food, same jars, same everything, but I've had more failures. So this last time I did beef stew, out of the 7 quarts in here, I had 1 fail. And then out of the 5 quarts in here, I had 3 fail, which I found interesting. So that ratio, I definitely have more failures in here. I've also never had a jar break in here. I've had a jar break in here. But something to consider is that maybe I missed a little fleck or glass being broken and, you know, a little nick in the glass. And that's why. I still love the convenience though. Like, you can't beat it. If you are considering a pressure canner, I think the 2 most important things to consider are, do you want it to be super self-sufficient off-grid? You're gonna want this. Do you want convenience? You're gonna want this. Do you have an electric or glass stovetop? You're most likely going to want this unless your manufacturer approves this. Even then, I still think it would be difficult to navigate the heat regulation on this, but I really love this for convenience. I love this for self-sufficiency and being able to can whenever, wherever, and it will last forever. Because this is electric and has a lot of different components like this screen, more things will go wrong. I'm not expecting this to last forever. I hope that this video has been helpful for you if you are diving into the world of canning canning to make your decision on what is best for you. I love them both. I don't think that you can go wrong. You just have to consider your situation. And I hope that you have an amazing day. Don't do anything you don't want to do, and I will see you next time.